A reminder that this that this is a three-part series. Like Kara mentioned, we are now going to be working on our second class. So thank you guys for coming back. For those that are here for the second time, and please feel free to check out the first one if you never had the opportunity to. And again, like I mentioned, we are starting part two today, which is all about virtual merchandising. In other words, we're going to help make your website look branded, look welcoming, and easy to navigate.
So as Kara mentioned, I'm Savannah Barkley, co-founder of Bloom and also owner of Sir Milky Quartz. Super excited to be here. Thanks again for coming.
Yep, and I'm Heather Wolfenden, also the co-founder of Bloom. My other small business is Island Vintage, and it's a brick and mortar vintage store here in Martha's Vineyard.
All right, so before we get started, and for those of you who did not come to last class, at least you're going to get a little sneak peek on the workshop that we worked through. Hopefully everyone had a chance to work through this worksheet on their own time, and that you brought some maybe aha moments or questions to class today. We definitely want this particular workshop to be really interactive. So, feel free to ask us anything on your mind as we kind of go through things. We're going to stop for questions a few times. All right, so we had a few-page worksheet that we gave everyone last time around. Like I said, I hope you found it helpful. Essentially, the guide that we provided was just meant to be a good way to jumpstart that translation of the look and feel of your pop-up into that digital space. I hope it helped you identify details of how to replicate that pop-up experience, from the visuals to the vibe to the customer interaction. And if you haven't done so yet, we do still highly recommend securing a domain name or two if you're going to jump right into web building. But this is kind of that first step. So if you've gone through this and filled out this worksheet, the exercise we're going to do today will directly build upon it.
We did dip our toes into user interface and user experience the last class, if you do remember. If not, we are going to review it again, so don't worry. And today we're going to be diving a lot deeper into that. So on this part of the worksheet, we really wanted you to think about how those particular ideas come through. So especially in your branding, your text, and your call to action buttons. So remember that those call to action buttons are basically you asking your customer to do something when they land on your website. So think really hard on what exactly you're asking them to do. And is that ask clear enough at first glance, or do they have to go hunting for it? Because we certainly don't want that to happen. And that final part of the worksheet from last class is really a two-parter. Firstly, we hope that when you're planning out your product pages, you are including any and all information that your customers need to make a purchase immediately. Essentially, we just don't want them digging around the rest of your website for FAQs. Give them everything they need right there so they don't hop off, and you don't want to give them an opportunity not to buy your product. And secondly, once you're all done with all of the nitty-gritty website work, please make sure you don't let your launch fall flat. Make sure you test. I think we mentioned last time that sometimes you might have this really crazy shipping error that's the reason why nobody's actually purchasing your products and just adding to cart. So be sure you're doing all of your checklist options over here on the worksheet before you actually launch your website, just to make sure that you didn't miss any of those tiny little details.
All right. So I can definitely go back to any of those pages on the worksheet if anyone has any specific questions, but we do want to just kind of take a moment. If anyone had any major realizations, you can drop something in the chat. If there's something that was wildly confusing, essentially because that's supposed to be the stable foundation that we're going to build upon today. So if there's something kind of, sticking out to you that you're like, I want to chat about that, this is definitely a good moment. If not, we can definitely jump into the rest of the class, but we just wanted to give a hot second for that.
Yeah, and I know we did have to kind of rush through this worksheet towards the end last time, so we just wanted to kind of pause and give an opportunity and just see if anybody needed even any clarity on anything that we touched base on last class.
And again, if people don't want to unmute their mics, you're more than welcome to put any questions or comments you have in the chat. We did that last time and it was great, the flow of convo.
Absolutely. Did anyone have experience they thought of from their event that really stood out to them that they wanted to translate into the digital space that they thought was super important or was surprising to them? If not, you are welcome to just sit tight for the rest of the class.
You guys have 30 seconds. All right, everybody, I think kind of knows what we're up to, and
Awesome.
I think we're on good, solid footing then.
Beautiful. So we're gonna
Let's
jump
hop
right in. All right, so jumping into what we're going to talk about today directly can be applied to last week's workshop, which we mentioned. So essentially, building that foundation. Then this is kind of more about, skinning the experience about like what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, translating all of those important elements that are happening into your booth, into your digital space in a way that looks good, feels good, and really works for your customer. So like digital features, that other brands are using, we're going to kind of explain some of those to you today, as well as, how we map the customer's journey and how you can do that on your website. So hopefully these details really, bring your site to life and actually make it look like, your business.
Alrighty, so now we're actually diving into the virtual merchandising. I know that you've probably heard visual merchandising before when you're talking about a retail space or an in-person event. Virtual merchandising is basically the same thing. It's a mix of storytelling and simplicity when it's actually done well. So the question really is, how do we make this happen? How do you actually virtually merchandise your online store? And the biggest thing that we're going to do today is break down a lot of examples because I think it's obviously a very visual learning experience, seeing what works and how to translate things from in person to online, and really just how to button up and tidy your online presence. So as we dive into a variety of different case studies, that's really what we're going to be focusing on today. There are a few things that we really hope that you can keep an eye out for, in particular branding, that user interface and the user experience. As a quick refresher again, user experience or UI is how your website looks, and UX or user experience is how your website feels and functions when you are using it or when your customer's using it. And we'll be sure to also take a look at some product photography and copywriting, which is basically how visuals and words work together to tell your brand story and sell your product. So we'll talk through those standout examples from companies that we think really get the vibe right across the board for all of these things. The first one I think a lot of you would be familiar with is Glossier, which is a beauty brand valued upwards of almost $2 billion. And it really did build its success by combining a digital first approach with highly curated pop-ups. So they're also in the pop-up space. Coming from a virtual standpoint into the pop-up space, it's a little bit different, but they do have to make sure, obviously, that their branding is synonymous across the board. So their branding, as you can kind of tell, has a lot of soft tones. There's minimal design, but also really clean and informative photos that support Glossier's approach. And they kind of have like a skin first vibe. With the quality of their products, they want to ensure that your skin never really has any like harsh chemicals and it's clean. And they really want to get across that simplicity and the cleanliness behind their products when they're actually branding their piece as well. And their voice is super clear. It's confidence, casual. A lot of the text throughout their website is almost like a friend that's kind of giving you recommendations, like maybe a very professional friend, but a friend nonetheless. Like the little bit here in the bottom left that says your future looks dewy. A lot of their text is really cute and fun, but it's also ties in perfectly to their product line. You'll notice, and you guys please feel free to actually like go on these websites afterwards, play around, click into it, because we have a couple brief examples of these, but when you're actually on these sites, you can dive really deep and find some amazing things. So the user interface itself has super simple navigation. They really have just a few product categories when you look at a similar makeup brand. So their whole vibe is no clutter, really clean, a lot of white space just to focus on the product. You'll notice that even on the right side there, when you look at one of their pop-ups, there's a lot of open space, a lot of room to navigate, and they really just put their products at the front line right there. The user experience, They are a mobile first website, so they really wanted to prioritize how the mobile experience worked, because that's where they know most of their customers are coming in at. Their fast checkout is essentially like you can click on a product, you can click, I want to check out with it right now. They're really smart and seamless with that design. And they even do that in their pop-ups too. They don't have a cashier that's standing there checking people out. They have QR codes in order to help you check out. So again, it's kind of looking at these like really quirky and fun, interesting things that happen in person and how they happen online, and how you can kind of combine the two together. So they definitely have a lot of easy selection options and add to cart for these super easy checkouts too. All right, so when we look at their photography too, you'll notice that they use real people with products on diverse, non-photoshopped skin, and their editorial style feels really high end, but very relatable. So you're not too scared to go in there, but you also know you're gonna have an elevated experience when you're inside their space and when you're online as well. So when we kind of look at this holistically, there's a few virtual merchandising wins. Those wildly easy checkouts, both in person and online, are really amazing. They also showcase their products in use. Like when you go to click over one of their products, they show somebody using it. So you kind of understand the texture of the product, the right way to use the product. There's a lot of education behind it as well. And they have essentially just a really seamless online and in-person experience with that simplicity at the core. So our biggest takeaways are that they really reaffirm that your website is your storefront. Every detail matters. It really should be one and the same, and that consistency builds trust. So your design, your photos, and your text should all really align in person and online. And when done correctly, the UI and the UX that we mentioned just feels easy and natural. It's not like you're going on their website and you're like, oh, I'm figuring out the UI and the UX. You're just there. It's going really well. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, they did an amazing job at this, but it was kind of behind the scenes. So it's not really in your face. It's just this really clean, simple, easy to use interface.
So I love Lobster.
It's a great company.
It is a great company and make great makeup. So our next study is Warby Parker, not really so much in the pop-up space as heavily as Glossier is, but a cool one to point out, essentially because of the fact that they are, a brand that does really well in person and online, and have found unique ways to kind of seamlessly integrate those two experiences. And that's kind of what we're trying to talk about here, is that like seamless integration that you can have happen. So like, from their branding, right away that they're like a stylish, accessible, socially conscious, very modern, minimalist, like aesthetic across the store and the digital. Like you look in the store and those cool pair, that big like graphic of the glasses, directly aligns to like what's happening on their website. It's very graphically connected. Their UI is clean, it's super user friendly, has really easy navigation. Like first and foremost, you're shopping for glasses, you're not really doing much else, but they have tools there to help you either virtually try things on, or they even have an app that has an augmented reality aspect where you can hold it up to your face and try glasses on. These I know are fancy and expensive, potentially expensive technologies to implement, but essentially, I think just thinking sky's the limit. There's a lot of different things that you can do, and there are a lot of technologies that you can use nowadays to, to at least try some things out and relatively easily. They also have a home try-on program that kind of even further bridges that online and offline shopping experience, which is like, you go onto their website, you see something in the digital space, but you want it in the physical space. So they have a way to make that easily happen without you going to the store, which is kind of a cool process. And, from there also personalized quizzes to guide customers into the right frame. So they've set up a lot of different things where, like, for example, like if you were, if Warby Parker was popped up and you went up to their booth and you tried on a bunch of glasses, that might be the experience that you would have in person with someone helping you and making sure you find the right fit. Well, online, they kind of have something that does that automatically, which is pretty cool. And it kind of takes some of the, it means that they don't have to necessarily be open, all of the time. They have a way to connect with their customers, even when they're not, popped up or open for shop hours. So I think that's the key here with us kind of thinking about a website for all of you is like, how can we continue to have your customers shopping your product, even when you're not, physically open? Even down to the photography, Warby Parker really does great with their like crisp, well-lit product shots with multiple angles. Their lifestyle imagery shows their glasses in real life settings on very, relatable people. So they really understand their target demographic. It's not like they're selling the most exclusive high-end stuff, but it is like nice quality. So their photography, represents that very well. Their copywriting is all very casual, informative, and fun. Definitely not as punchy and interesting as like Glossier, but it definitely, it does the job. They understand who their target demographic is. Kind of like, it's very no fuss. And like I said before, the things that I think are really great about, their virtual merchandising are their try-on abilities, the home try-on, as well as all their personal recommendation. Which really like lead to just reduce friction and boosted confidence of their consumers to actually come to their site and just, order something right away because they know, oh yeah, I can order 5 pairs of glasses and return, all of them essentially if I wanted to. So it's definitely kind of takes that to the next level, makes it so that the consumer is kind of ready to dive in at any time. So the main takeaways here, I think, are just their ability to replicate that in-store experience digitally, and all of the personalization tools that make a physical experience really amazing. They've found ways to use interaction to have that happen online, which really just simplifies the decision-making with all their clear messaging and visuals. All right, we'll move on to the next one. So another great one, which most of you know and probably use in some capacity, IKEA, whether you love them or hate them, they are a brand that truly excels in bringing the in-person showroom experience online. I personally don't know another furniture brand that does this well. They definitely, even when you're driving down the highway and you see that big blue box, you know exactly for like what kind of experience you're in for. IKEA is very recognizable, and I think they, they built out their showroom to be a true complement to their online experience. And I think the showroom experience is maybe even the more exciting one, but online and the in-person connect in a lot of ways to help them, essentially make sales. So their branding right off the bat is very affordable, but stylish and functional. They keep with their consistent Scandinavian aesthetic across the stores, the website, all of their catalogs. It's super recognizable. Their, UI there is structured. It, their layout online actually mimics their showroom floor in a way, in terms of these like shoppable room ideas. They have 3D planners to help customers visualize products. So like even you can see here on that main photo, it's just a little like lifestyle setup of, some furniture, like a vignette. Their whole store is just filled with those types of vignettes. So it's like, it's almost like the transportation of that in-store vignette that you saw already to an online thing that you can now, also shop immediately if you wanted to, which I think makes a big difference. And then they, they have little interactive elements, which a lot of websites allow you to do that natively nowadays, especially in Shopify, where like those little dots are all each products and you can click on them and then it just takes you directly to the product page. So this isn't technology that isn't accessible to all of you, essentially. They're just really really great at using it. In terms of their, UX, they do augmented reality previews. So if you wanted to see what something looked like in your home, that's a possibility. And all of their assembly guides create that seamless online to offline experience, as well as frustrating as they can sometimes be. They are, they work really well for them in terms of the way that they run their business. The photography, like I said before, the lifestyle images directly replicate the showroom setups. They have clean product shots with multiple angles and clear dimensions. The copywriting is really simple and functional and DIY friendly, which is one of the main things that IKEA sells, is like, you know, for essentially for the cost that you're paying, you're putting it together. So they kind of make that look or make that feel a little more like elevated in a way. And they try to make sure that their customer is going to have at least a somewhat reasonable time putting their furniture together, to make sure that they, you know, will come back again. So I would say the main takeaways from IKEA is that they really make online shopping immersive. They use all these interactive tools like AR and, you know, even some of these little like vignette shopping experiences as well, to just build that confidence of like, hey, like this is the thing that you can actually purchase. These are all the pieces, and they really help their customer essentially design their homes in a reasonable and affordable way. And you can do that whether or not you go in store or you are online. And another main thing too is their education and accessibility, you know, and I think that that drives a lot of loyalty from customers in general.
All right, our next case study is a company called The Sill. If you're not familiar with them, they're an independent plant shop, and they've really grown from a physical plant boutique into a really strong online and digital experience presence. So it's a really great example for a company that's product-based, but really experience-driven. They're really strong on the education side of products. They essentially don't want to be selling you plants that you take home and then they wilt and die a month or two later, because you're not really planning to continue your purchasing of plants if they're not staying alive. So they're well aware that they need to teach you how to take care of these things. And you'll feel that when you go into their store and when you go online as well. Branding wise, you can tell right away that you kind of have a sense of like friendliness and wellness in a way that they've really designed to make their plants feel approachable, even for beginners. For somebody like me who has killed, unfortunately, many of plants in my home and my store, I am looking for places that can give me a little bit more information where I don't feel silly asking for the information up front. And that's exactly kind of the experience they want people to have. They give all that information readily, so that way you're not having to sort through and sift through and ask questions. And really they remove any barriers to entry for plant buyers. You'll notice that they have a really strong user interface, where you can see that again, both in store and online. Online is cleanly designed. They have a lot of white space. They have earthy tones. Everything feels very calm and comfortable. It feels like you can almost like keep a plant alive when you simply like walk into space. You're like, oh, I can do this. This is super easy. That was all intentional. They did a great job with that. In person, what they do is they have they have a general. Sorry guys, it's like 6:30 at night. So in person, they bundle their plants often by type, and they do the same online. So they have these really cool filters where you can search like light safe, pet safe, beginner friendly, and you can kind of sort through and look at the products in that regard. So user experience, you'll see that their online mimics their in-store. They have a lot of build your own bundles, and they have that on the back end of their website, as well as their in-person experiences as well. And again, both inline, I keep saying that, sorry, both online and in store, you'll notice their educational approach. So in person, their employees are basically experts. They'll tell you anything that you need to know. And online, they have these really amazing options where you can chat with a plant expert, either on the phone or via text message immediately, almost anytime. Again, their photography is really great. It's bright, minimal images. They feel curated. They feel trustworthy. And they have a lot of lifestyle shots when you scroll over one of their plants that show those plants in real spaces. So it essentially like right away boosts the relatability, and you feel like you can visualize that in your own home space as well. They have a tendency to keep their copywriting really helpful, casual, and again, informative. It's never overwhelming. They're not throwing these crazy terms at you that you're not familiar with. They keep things super simple and easy. They do have care tips on every single product page. So again, you don't have to go searching for all this information. It's right there. And they do have blog content to match and expand on that further. So for us, a lot of visual merchandising wins we have here, both their online and in-person bundles are really strong. They have a tendency to help them increase their average order value. Again, they put education first, both online and in person, and they do a lot of digital workshops as well as in-person social engagement to help build their community. So the takeaways there is just really think beyond the selling of your product, really help your customers succeed with the product. You don't want to just give them a product that they don't know what to do with or take care of. Make sure that they fully understand what to do so that way they come back to you, because it really helps build value in your connection. Both education and branding will build loyalty, not just clicks on your website. And we can pop on to the next one, which I know we're all familiar with this one, Trader Joe's. It's actually one of our favorite examples of great branding outside of just websites or in-person experiences. It's a beloved grocery store, which is not something that you see. Almost like IKEA is the standalone furniture store that has this really amazing branding. Trader Joe's is kind of the IKEA of the grocery store space. And they work really hard to build loyalty and brand engagement. If you're not familiar with Trader Joe's website, you cannot actually buy anything, which is really kind of cool and interesting. So we wanted to use this example in case you're somebody that your products don't really sell well online, or you don't want to sell online, but you still can have a really strong online presence if you do things kind of the right way. So when we break down Trader Joe's branding, we're looking at obviously like a really quirky, fun, and friendly place to be. They handwrite all of their signs. The employees wear Hawaiian shirts. There's a lot of puns there. And they do have a lot of private label products with unique names and packaging that set them apart. You'll notice that right on their shopping list. So you can go on their website and create a shopping list, but you can't actually purchase those products, but you can get familiar with those products and get an understanding for what's available in their in-person stores. And their website is super simple and content focused when we're looking at it from a user interface standpoint, just because they don't sell products online. It's very simple and easy to navigate. Their navigation leads you to recipes, product spotlights, and a store finder. So essentially, they're really focusing on the transition from online to bringing you in person. When you're on the website itself and you're experiencing things via UX, you'll see that they prioritize helpful information over flashy design. It's not this like a big crazy thing. It's actually a very simple website that has amazing information and great visuals. They have a Fearless Flyer newsletter that acts like their mini magazine that's accessible both online and in person. And again, their site really encourages in-person visits through their storytelling and product highlights. They get you really excited for a limited time offering, a limited time product that comes around. They really kind of harbor on that like FOMO, which if you're not familiar is the fear of missing out on things. So you see something that's going to be like a big deal, either via social media or on their website. The pumpkin spice muffins are only going to be around for 2 weeks, and they really want to kind of light a fire for you to get into their stores, and they're really, really good at that. So again, their photography is also really inviting. It's really warm. They take photos where it doesn't feel too flashy and too professional, almost like homemade. That's all very intentional. And their product photos show their packaging very clearly. So it's not just like a picture of the food itself. You see their packaging because when you're in their store, that's exactly what the colors and the text that you're looking for. They want you to associate with what you saw online. So you walk in and you know exactly, oh, that's the thing I was looking for. And again, when you go there, you kind of notice that they only have so many products. It's not a crazy store that you can spend forever in searching through. You see all these products that you're relatively familiar with already. And if you're not familiar with a couple products, you want to go explore it. So they really know what they're doing there. The copywriting itself on the website and in person, again, full of puns. It's personality, it's humor. One of my favorite examples is their Everything But the Bagel seasoning. They were the creators of that. It's so simple, it's so genius, and it's just really fun. And they have a lot of different food options that kind of resonate with that as well. And so for us, the virtual merchandising wins are that they really use the content as their product online via recipes and their newsletters and their seasonal promos. And through this, they really start to build hype for in-person products without ever actually having to sell anything online. And takeaways from you guys is that you don't have to sell anything online to win online. This is a great example of strong branding and content that really drives your in-person traffic. So you can always just lean into what makes your business fun, personable, and memorable, and you don't even have to go forward with all these crazy technologies and all these interactive elements if you can really just do simplicity well.
Absolutely. I also love Trader Joe's.
We tried to pick our favorite things if you didn't notice.
All right, so we're gonna dive into the next stage here, which is essentially to focus on the smaller scale now. So the pop-up. So the folks that we just looked at are doing, big things with big teams. So it might not necessarily be where you're at right now, but we can start to think about how to get your digital experience kind of moving along, which in turn will grow your business in the long run. Just by kind of examining some pop-ups. I'm going to go through some examples of folks that I don't necessarily even know. I just found these photos online as good as good examples. But I think that what we really want you to do here is to think about your own pop-up setup and really just, in terms of like how things are kind of put together, what you can pull out in order to kind of make your digital experience kind of what you want it to be. Where are those notes of like translation? How are you gonna kind of create that seamless experience for your customer? Because essentially the same principles apply whether or not you're a big business or a small pop-up. You just want to focus on that customer action, brand recognition, and in turn, sales.
And if you don't necessarily have your pop-up design fully nailed down or you're new to pop-ups, take this as an opportunity to explore and really just kind of use this as inspiration for some of the elements that you might want to add to your pop-up.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to start with Bread Block first because it's kind of a fun one tying into the Trader Joe's model where I don't necessarily know this brand right off the bat, but it stands out with its visually striking market setup. It's really cute, kind of feels like something cozy that I would like to see at a farmer's market. I have a feeling that they likely don't rely on that traditional e-commerce model where they're like selling bread on the internet. But rather their website is kind of using or potentially streaming pre-orders, creating a grocery shopping list in a way, or just essentially getting those orders in before they actually show up at the farmer's market, so they know, okay, how much bread am I going to bring? How much bread can I, sell today? Because having those metrics ahead of time and also having the revenue kind of come in ahead of time will allow you to to kind of plan out your markets, your entire process. And it also potentially would allow you to, your online platform would allow you to announce the market locations ahead of time, to even build loyalty through like reminders, if you have those set up in some kind of digital way. So like every touch point that you can have with your customer is definitely a good one. And, like Trader Joe's, you don't need to be selling the product online, but there is still a place for this digital, space for your brand. And a lot of times that will be the thing that kind of keeps those customers coming time and time again, because you're reminding them that you exist, which is really important. Another thing here is that likely Bread Block, if they had an online platform, they could have high quality product photography. They could even talk about the way they make their bread. They could talk about the ingredients in their bread. They can have a video showing how their bread is made. All of these things that branding storytelling online can essentially turn, casual shoppers into repeat customers, possibly before they even arrive. Like they're going to, see a market, they're going to see your website and be like, oh, wow, I really want to visit so-and-so when I get there. And if they already have that in their mind before they come, likely they're going to buy something from you. I mean, you all have seen it when like your returning customers come, they're like, I came to this market specifically to see you, and they make a purchase because sometimes they need that warm-up period. So a website is a really great way to do that ahead of time. Another good example is Light Provisions, a candle company, which obviously would drive on scent-driven sales, which are a little tricky on the internet. So the thing here, just to keep in mind, is that, they might sort of almost have to do in-person events to make those, original customer interactions happen. But then once they fall in love with those signature scents at markets, the digital experience should really focus on that seamless like ability for them to reorder, get on your email list, have an easy to navigate online shop where you have really great product photography, and like, you know, they don't even need like a giant e-commerce site. It just needs to be something simple enough where like they're creating the right, you know, touch points for like, here's our small product line, here's how they're made, here's where to find us, kind of thing. But they, you know, your customers might move, they might not be able to come back to the markets in their area, but they still want, they're a loyal customer who wants to continue to reorder. But if they don't have a website to order from, that makes that very difficult. Another thing here too is the ability to leverage like wholesale opportunities through e-commerce. I think having a website makes that a whole heck of a lot easier and a lot more automated. And if you have a site that says, hey, I'm open to wholesale opportunities, and someone finds you at a market, they can just inquire there, and rather than just kind of moving on being like, I don't know if they wholesale or not. And, you know, you're already saying, hey, I'm open for business, and they can, you know, that just becomes a lot easier. All right, 2 more quick examples, and we're going to dive into the exercise. So I hope everyone's thinking. So the first here is Fable in Maine, which is a larger brand, but not a super huge business that's pop-up experiences focuses on storytelling and sensory experience, specifically showcasing their hair care line. They tend to pop up at like, you know, I'd say larger scale events like trade shows, like, you know, events that like Sephora puts on, like that type of thing, rather than like a smaller market. So their setups are relatively elaborate. They have rich visuals. They really make sure to, you know, kind of educate and engage that customer in this sort of like wow experience when they do a pop-up. But then when you move over to their website, the website is going to offer all of those like enticing things that the pop-up doesn't necessarily do. So like this pop-up isn't for, you know, selling product per se. It's more so for brand recognition, for getting people invested and interested in what they're doing. And then when you get to online, that's when you can start to make purchases. You can sign up for subscriptions, you can sign up for newsletters, you can buy bundles, you can do video tutorials. So their website really is all about that personalized experience that, you know, mirrors you know, what that brand wants the customer to feel when they're actually shopping with them in person, even if they don't necessarily have like, you know, big brick and mortars. Through these pop-ups alongside the online experience, they can kind of have that magic happen. All right. And the last one here is another brand that does handmade children's wear. And they just clearly looking, you know, have a clear color palette and a delicate vibe that definitely could easily transition into like a beautiful, clean website, you know, with high quality product and lifestyle images, along with like detailed narratives on materials and care that'll extend that in-person experience. This is also something to always think of, like, you know, what are the things that, you know, if I have a booth full of people, not everyone can ask me a million questions. You know, what are the things that I'm getting asked? And would all my other customers also want to know those things? Like, how are my products made? What are they made out of? How do you care for my products? Because this is something that you could say 1,000 times in person, but then you can make, you know, one short video or one really great, you know, blog on your website to really present that information, so that when someone does come to your website, you know, you don't necessarily have to be there to give that information to them. So that's the really great thing about having a digital space that kind of represents you at all times. The website for them could also showcase a broader inventory that they can't bring to events. And they also don't need to like showcase every single size, you know, photo. So it's, you know, it's a decluttered version of your pop-up. Essentially, you can have one shot that is like, you know, this, a particular piece, you know, that comes in lots of sizes. So it's just a much more seamless way to convert that interest from a pop-up to the online sales.
All right, and that was really the crux of the information. Now we're going to get into our digital merchandising challenge. So we'll ask you to pull out your worksheets that Kara so kindly sent to you. This worksheet, if you noticed, is a lot shorter than the last one. This is just a simple one-pager, but it's a super effective and efficient way to kind of map out any and every page on your current or future website. The idea behind what we're doing today, and we mentioned that previously, is really thinking critically on how to translate the visual and experiential elements of your physical pop-up, just like we kind of spoke about and looked at those examples of, and how do we turn that into a web page design that delivers an engaging and a seamless digital experience. And if you don't necessarily have your worksheet printed out, you can take notes on a piece of paper. You can kind of just visually think about how you want this to go. And because this is where things really start to get kind of fun, and you got to use your creativity a little bit here too. And again, if you don't necessarily have your pop-up set up down pat, think about the things that you'd like to have in your pop-up. And you can do both. You can bring those things to life in your pop-up, and you can also bring them to life in a digital landscape. So think a little bit here about what makes your setup special. Is it your hero product or like your best-selling product? Is there one thing that people come in for all the time? Do you do an interactive demo? Maybe you are a candle maker and people have to smell your candles and you have them displayed out that way, similarly to one of the previous examples we saw. Do you make hot sauce and people can try your hot sauce with crackers? Is that really what people, come into your booth for? Is it your brand colors or maybe your booth layout that catches people's eyes and convinces them to come in? Like, think critically for a moment when you're sitting at your booth. Why are people coming to you? Is it the same thing kind of repeatedly that you're hearing from people? Because maybe that's the thing that makes your booth special, even if you don't necessarily register it yourself. So think on that for a little bit and pick one key thing that you'd like to focus on and imagine how that element could come to life online. If you're totally stuck right now and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do for my customers? Like, how do they interact with me? How does it go? Think about how you interact with your customers. Maybe you are the key element of your pop-up. And how do you translate that online? Maybe that's just your copy or your text like coming to life. Maybe you have to find the best way to tell your story online. And that's really how you're going to get people pulled in. So it doesn't have to be anything too flashy. It just has to be really authentic to you and your brand and your business. So pick that one thing that you really want to focus on. If you've got a couple things, that's okay too. Just think on that. And how can we bring that to life? Could it live as like a punchy banner at the top of your homepage? If people know you for your branding and your colors and a simple phrase that you always say, maybe that's like the one thing that you want to put as a top banner that lives at the top of your website. Is it a video demo to show people how to actually use your product? And that's going to live on your homepage. A textured background that captures your vibe or like raw materials that you work with. If you're somebody who's like a fiber artist, like, can you get a really zoomed in, like close up photo of the actual materials that you're working with that people otherwise wouldn't have access to see? Can you kind of blow that up and get people really excited about what they're working with? Because we feel like this worksheet will help you plan this out and figure out how to visually translate that pop-up into that real life website. I know we did get one question. If we want to pop on those, Savannah, or do you want to go on to the next slide?
Let me go through the next one we can go
Okay.
through the questions. That's fine. Yeah, no worries.
Okay,
Yeah.
we just have one so far.
Yeah.
Rita says, I'm a henna artist and also create painted and embroidered bags and journals. How do I scale the henna since it needs to be always done in person? And my key element is color. And so far, all sites we have looked at are serene and calm. My booth is a blast of color, which I think is amazing. I think you lean into that. I think your website should also be a blast of color. I think when you're trying to differentiate yourself in the marketplace, if all of the other henna artists have this like really calm and serene website and that's not your vibe, then your website should not have that vibe, right? Like, you should showcase who you are, show your colors, make people go, oh my gosh, that's the person that I saw at this market. And like, I knew it right away when I saw her thing. The scaling of henna is definitely a bigger conversation as to kind of how you would want to do that. Savannah, do you have any tips and tricks to think about scaling in that regard?
I mean, scaling could mean a lot of different things. I feel like, especially if it's a service essentially that you're offering, I would say that if there is a way to use a digital platform to potentially have bookings ahead of time for that service, that's kind of one of the first things that comes to mind for me. But in terms of scaling, I'm not sure if you mean like, hiring more than one person to help you out at an event, but that could possibly be a way. But I'd say if you're going to do that, the best way to do that is to essentially, book out ahead of time. So, okay, I already have enough bookings to pay the individual that I'm asking to come help me at this event. So you can kind of create that online, I'm like hype essentially around the thing that
Demand,
you're
yeah.
going to be doing. Yeah. And also just know that you're also gonna get paid already. So that's always nice. I hope that's helpful.
It was very helpful. Thank you.
All right, so the last step is essentially all about interaction and enhancing that experience once you have all of those elements decided. So we're really just kind of thinking about, what is that visitor's experience when they come to the site? Using what we reviewed, just think about how you could mimic some of that in-person magic that's happening, when you're interacting with a customer, or even thinking about, hey, what's the best interaction I've ever had with a customer, and how can I, and why did it go so well? And then kind of breaking that down a little bit and thinking about how you can translate that into a digital space. I know it's like much more magic in person, but I do think that there is a way that, if your goal is, okay, I want to show up in person, but I want to boost my revenue, maybe the goal is with your digital space is to really just like build, anticipation, possibly do pre-orders, all of these different things that make your, website valuable to you. And you never know when someone's looking at a market list and they're like, oh, I want to see all these different, vendor options and browse their products before I even show up. So I've kind of decided on what I'm going to buy. There are a lot of people who like to do that. So if you don't have a website for them to even look at in the first place, you might not make it on that list. So that's another reason just to have one, even just to boost your in-person sales if you're not going to do sales online. Some ideas here might be in terms of interaction would be image carousels to show a storyline or process, even video to capture attention and right away, just to show even how a product works. If you do a demo in person, oh, this is how this thing works. Maybe making a video or even some kind of schematic for online would really help to have them buy that thing versus just, here's a nice, well-lit product photo. It usually needs a little something more. You can use scrolling effects to call attention to certain details when you're actually moving through the website, or animations that trigger when something happens. And this doesn't have to be boring. It could be fun. It, definitely sky's the limit here as long as you can figure out how to make it happen. But I think thinking creatively first about it is really nice. And then, kind of breaking it down into what's possible over time is always, smart too. I would say the goal here is to think of that one thing that you can incorporate into your site that would sell your product like you do in person, and what does that look like? And just remember that less is more, and that doesn't mean like it has to be a white box kind of boring thing. If you want to do color, if you want to do really graphic, go for it. Just do it intentionally.
Yeah, absolutely. When we just had Kara respond talking about the henna, that you could do a video on your webpage, and I thought that was a really great thing to bring up because there's a lot of handcrafted elements or hand done things where people may not realize the work behind it and the studies behind it and how hard you're working to gain this level of expertise. So to really like show the precision in the things that you do, and even just to break down the barrier for people that might not really understand what you do and how it works ahead of time, it really does go to further lengths than you might even realize. So that's another great way to enhance your digital experience is to just do something like that. If anybody else has any other questions specific to what they do and how they could maybe translate that online, we'd really be happy to help answer and kind of think through some of these things with you guys while we have you for the next few minutes. So please feel free to drop it in the chat. Yeah, like exactly. Should one of the people I did henna for did not even realize it came from a plant. Yeah, I mean, you have to imagine that your customers know nothing. They have no idea what you do, what things are made out of. One of our, not to like pick on you, Erica, but Erica over here, is somebody that works with Bloom. And we spoke recently about how, she works with all these different fibers and and some of her customers didn't even realize that different fibers came from different animals. And she had to kind of explain that, these things that you think when you're in this space are, well known for a lot of folks, they just have no idea. All right, we have Another one from Kayla, she said, I sell books, so tend to give a lot of personal recommendations in person. Maybe I need a decision flow chart or similar imagery to help people see what they might like.
Absolutely. Another thing that comes to mind is on a lot of e-commerce sites, you can actually choose what products show up as suggestions. So like you might like, and then it'll give you all these shopping suggestions, which I think a flowchart would be really kind of fun to look at. But I do think in terms of like increasing revenue, something like that could work really well if you have an online inventory to shop from. And that's something that's relatively easy to set up just by tagging, certain products.
Yeah, I think flowchart's great. I think blogs are really nice too. If you're at home and you're just like, wow, I really feel like if folks read from this author, they're really going to like this author, write a short blog about it and describe why you feel that way, your thought processes behind it, kind of these conversations you're already having with the customers that come into your booth, just record them and put them on a blog. And then you can attach them to specific products like, not sure what to read next. And then you kind of have these interactive blogs where people can go in and they can click the products that you're recommending. And again, you're really focusing on upselling there too. Anybody else?
I had a question.
Yeah.
So one thing that resonated with me a couple slides back was the fact that particularly a lot of new vendors, they don't realize they don't have to bring everything. A lot of people think that they have to bring every single product that they make to a market. Well, I think that a lot of people learn that's not the case, but I wonder if you have any recommendations about what people could do in person at a market to educate people to be like, you see what you like here, like here's how you go to the website to experience more. Is it like QR codes? I know we talked about newsletter signups, things like that, but do you have any suggestions about like how to entice people to go online to experience even more? I think like Kayla's suggestion or thought was really interesting because like if she has a book at her market, she could be like, if you like this, then you might like this, and this, and that's all available on my website. Like that kind of thing. Do you have
Yeah.
any thoughts?
I mean, definitely the newsletter QR code, like essentially anything that kind of keeps them on that journey. I think that, you can definitely use, I would say like some kind of graphic like keys in your space that are sort of leading towards that. But I think that if you kind of set your booth up in a way where it feels intentional that they're like showcased objects in a way, if that makes sense. Which I think, it's sort of that less is more thing where like if you have a selection of pieces out where you only have like one, you don't have all the sizes, you have like one of each color or style, and maybe just this is like your best sellers that you're bringing to the event. You can even have like a small catalog that you can give people, as like a handout that isn't like an actual catalog. It could be like a little zine that has some photos of your products that are not necessarily in person with a QR code, maybe telling a little bit more of your story. So I'd say it's just a matter of kind of getting creative with it. But I do think that just showcasing less and maybe be a little bit more intentional about the actual products that you do bring to the pop-up space, and that, you're really putting your best foot forward and being like, hey, this is like the creme of the crop of my brand. And if you want to shop more, we do have more, but you can go on our website for that.
And you can have a very like physically enticing thing to get people on your website too. If you like print out postcards via Vistaprint or something like that, that says, like you can use whatever copy you think is most on par for your brand, but something like what you see, there's more where that came from. Use $5 off with this code on my website, right? So you're giving people an enticing element here where they can interact with it, look at it and go like, oh, $5 off. I might as well just go look to see what's on there. You don't necessarily have to give $5 off, but it's just, kind of a thought process behind how can you entice people to go online and check out what you have going on there. It looks like we do have a question from Richa, if you want to go ahead. Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So my question was, I'm also a
Nonprofit, so everything that I make with these events or pop-ups or website goes to animal shelters and animal rescues. But I don't know if So sometimes telling people about that helps because they're like, I mean, who doesn't like puppies and kittens and, whatever, but some people don't. And then sometimes I feel like is telling them this kind of puts them in a spot where they're like, now if I don't buy from her, I sound like a Scrooge. And then they tend to just walk away and not engage with me. So I just don't know should I tell them about it? Because all my source material is also sourced from marginalized communities in India. So I'm trying to support those local cottage industries that are female run. So, and then from here, my profit is there. But if I tell them too much about my social mission, it makes me feel like I'm trying to, oh, look at me, I'm so holier than thou, which is not true at all. But I don't know if it puts people off or if it actually helps my cause.
Absolutely. Heather, do you have a
Yeah.
thought? I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, my initial reaction, and listen, our words are not gospel. This is just simply my first thought on that is that if you're telling people authentically like who you are and what your business is doing, and they're choosing to not interact or walk away, they might not be your customers. And that's okay. Not everybody's going to be your customer, right? I think that if you're trying to get people that also care about what you're doing, then they really should be excited to hear what you have to say. I mean, if somebody in particular you think is going to be a customer and maybe, you're not sure if you should tell them or not, you can just suss it out and see how it feels. But I'd say don't feel bad when you're sharing the truth behind your brand and you're telling them the actual story. It's not a holier than thou type thing at all. It's just telling them, really who you are and why you do this and why it's important. And I don't think if somebody pulls away from that you should ever feel like that was your fault. That's on them, and they decided that that they're going to do something else. Maybe they didn't even know what henna was, and they're like, oh my gosh, and she's got all this social cause, and they're like, oh, this is too much for me to handle, right? So they just walk away. They don't necessarily feel like it's something that you do, but you can have some information sheets out or something like that too that feels very easy to read and interact with, where somebody can go, oh, that's really amazing, these things that you do. But from my perspective, again, your customers are the people that really like and support what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one, sorry.
No, you're good.
No, I was just saying I did a fun thing last 2 times and it was such a big hit. I kind of got like a wooden post, and I started making notches on it, and I would say it's called my henna virginity post. And anytime who's getting the henna for the first time, I always tell them, oh, I'm on it. I get to take your henna virginity away. And I make a little notch on the post. People love it. And then there was this one lady who said, she said, yeah, this is my first time. And I'm like, oh, you get a notch on my post. And then when she was leaving, she goes, this was my 5th time, but I wanted to be on the post. And I was like, okay.
I love it.
Lean into that. So cool.
That's so great. No, I think that's really creative. And I think those are the things that, will really start to set you apart if you just kind of lean into that a little further. One thing I was going to bring up too is that in branding and signage, I think there's a lot that you can do there. So you can kind of tell people that the message is present, but you don't necessarily have to do a full spiel every single time. So that might kind of alleviate a little bit of the, the friction that you're feeling.
Okay, thank you.
It does look like we're at 7:30. So if we want to kind of just pop through the end of it, and then we'll stay around for a few minutes if anybody has any further questions.
Okay.
That really was the end of it. We're basically just saying goodbye now. So this is all of our contact information, our email, our web, our socials. If you do sign up for our newsletter on our website, we do really pay attention to grants and other opportunities going around kind of in the southern New England area. So even if you don't have any plans to work with us directly or have any questions like that, please just sign up for our newsletter. We always send really good information. At least I think so. And we are really happy to help with any website questions that you guys have. I think we mentioned last time we do free consultations. So if you have any sort of questions, please just pop on with us. We also do consulting where it's like if you want to do your own website project and you just need somebody to like help you with a couple things, we're happy to do that too. So yeah, next up, Savannah, if you want to hit that next slide, we've got our last class in a couple
So
weeks.
next up is our last class, which is definitely, last but certainly not least. This particular workshop is all about conversion. So we're going to really get into the nitty gritty about how to make a splash on a small budget, dive into tools like Google Analytics, SEO, social media metrics, essentially all of these things that can help you track your success and know where your website is or isn't, which I think is really important. It's great to build a website and get it out there, but it is always a process of adjusting and, as you grow and as you learn. So we want your website to be working for you as well. So I hope you can join us, and thanks again for your time. This is always so much fun. And we can hang out for a few moments if Kara's okay with that, if anyone has any last
Yeah, I'm
questions.
absolutely okay with that. Yeah, if you have to drop off, please feel free. I'm going to be sending the recording this around, so if there's anything you missed, you'll be getting a recording. But if you just want to drop any comments or personal stories or questions in the chat, or go ahead and raise your hand or unmute yourself, we can hang out for a couple minutes. And we also just launched 2 legal workshops coming up in May, which I'm super excited about. The first one's going to be on May 12th, May 12th. And we're going to be talking all things LLC, S Corp, Sole Prop, all those fun, scary things. Well, we're going to make them not scary. So make sure you register for that too. So let's see. Is the email the
Good.
best way to get your newsletter, guys?
You can shoot us an email, or even if you go on our website, we have like a little newsletter, blurb at the bottom. You could just throw your email in there.
Either is fine.
whatever's
Always happy to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that right now. You'll notice if you do go on our website that our branding is just pretty much the same that you'll see here on these slides. Everything we do is as branded as we can make it.
So the consistency is key, right?
All right, guys. Well, I don't think we have any questions or personal anecdotes for tonight. So we will sign off, and we will see you guys on April 9th.
Thank you so
Looking forward
much.
to it, guys. Thank you
Can't
so
wait
much.
for it. Have a
Everyone,
good
thank
one.
you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.